So I will only ask one time, and I won't scream. I want you to, on three, tell me from which country you are from, okay? I won't do, hey, again, stronger, louder. No, no, only one time I'll ask, okay? So on three, shout out your country. Sure? Let's go? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ah, yeah, that country. Yeah, I've been there before. Awesome people, nice people. Nice people, man. Yeah, great. So far, you're coming so far to see this guy, you know? This is probably the stupidest slide, like, this is me. But makes sense because people back there might not see me. And video guy, you're lucky I didn't brought my clicker because I tried to run away. Or I brought some heels because normally when they record, it's just faces and like this. Cool? Cool. Okay, that's me, my picture, and this is what I do. Community advocate, I organize Google Developers Group in Lisbon, and also, of course, Portugal, Flutter Portugal. And then I've done more than 10 years. You know, when they say this, more than 10 years, it means 10 years and 1 month, But in truth, I didn't want it to say how many years. I like to think you're young. I'm young, without makeup. I'm not wearing makeup. And yeah, I work as machine learning engineer. That's shot back. I should have kept on machine learning. But yeah, here I am, really happy to be here. Thank you for staying. Thank you for watching this talk. And of course, thank you again for inviting me and have the opportunity to talk here. And what are we going to talk? We are not going to talk about Flutter. We are only going to talk about Dart. I wish we could be doing a Dart conference, right? Because instead of having those guys under it, we'll be only Dart guys, playing darts and talks upstairs, games downstairs. That will be amazing. All the time, drink and darts. So really quickly, yeah, yes, this is my talk. Dart Microservices, welcome. And for this, if you are following it at home afterwards, you might want to follow it. There are some requirements to use Dart in the backend and for microservices. I've been, of course, Dart, Git, Docker, asterisks, because, of course, you might want to use a different containerization method. And of course, I will be using Google Cloud SDK just for the command line G clouds. And of course, the GDP itself to deploy the microservices. So, and if you're using GDP, you need a Gmail account sign in on GDP. So now the best part, just putting that out there and going faster. I will split this talk in 2 parts: why microservices and why GCP, and then we will quickly go through and build a small microservice with Dart shelf. So why microservices and why GCP? Microservices has many its features, many good things to use them. Instead of using just a big old machine, one machine that has their own use cases, of course. Microservices gain more traction, and the best part of, in my opinion, for them is really their flexibility and resiliency to the amount of data they can process, and you can also scale way better than just one big machine. Great, all good. Also, why GCP? Well, it has 2 features that are free and really good, a good tier of free feature. The Cloud Run, it's the one I'm going to use. It's serverless, but still it's quite nice to work with the Cloud Run. It has 2 features in per se. It has the services. It's continuously running your Docker machine, your codes. It's always attentive, or a job that just runs through one time and can be useful in certain use cases. And it has a free tier, has 2 million requests. Awesome, right? And then, of course, I will be using Docker, so I will be using container images for this example and this code. And just a note in this regard, I will be using mentioned artifact registry API. The previous one was called container registry. It was deprecated in 13th of May of this year. And The biggest image you can upload is 5 terabytes. Okay, it's not a mistake. It's really 5 terabytes. I don't know why, and not giga. It is what it is. Maybe if you have a microservice with 5 terabytes, it's not a microservice. It might be a macro service. Okay, no good. Moving forward. So that was it. So why GCP? Free tier. You know, everyone likes free tier, and it's quite open and useful. So let's build a quick macro service, okay? Really macro. And I will be using Shelf. Why Shelf? Yeah, Shelf is not a full-blown server framework. If you're coming from a different language, you might be familiar with Django, Spring, even Express.js. It has many other features built upon. Shelf is just a web server middleware, but it has its advantages to be just like so. Of course, it's maintained by the Dart team itself. Asterisk, if you go to the repository, it's always maintained by the community. It's not directly, but it's maintained by Dart team. And many years ago, I was trying, and I spent so many hours with projects like Acodot and Angel, but life happens and maintainers quit, and I got serious question myself what I did with there. So I tend to use what is more reliable. So I tend to go through and use Shelf, because Shelf will continue to happen. And even, well, meanwhile, we have Frog, right, by VGV, and which is good, of course. But again, they rely on Shelf. So if you know Shelf, you're safe. Your knowledge won't be lost in next year. And also because Shelf is really modular. You can just install the basics, the core of Shelf, but then add more add-ons as soon while you need them, right? If you need a router, if you are going to use WebSockets, you can add the package for the WebSockets, the add-on and cores, of course, the big cores issues, right? And many other community add-ons, okay? And the community itself, it's quite growing. In 2022, there were around 100 packages, and now, last time I checked, 4th of July, yay, 4th of July, it had now already 182 packages. So the community, I don't know if someone here already created a package for Shelf. If you did, thank you. And if you're not, well, you're safe that there are many other packages that you can rely on. And that's why Shelf makes sense, right? Let's really dive in and start using Shelf directly. So how do you create a Shelf project? Luckily, well, it's a Dart project per se. Luckily, there's a template for it. Of course, the Dart, when you use Dart Create, you have other functionalities, the console full, package simple, web simple, but you have the server Shelf. So to start a simple server, you can simply say, call the template server Shelf, and then you call it whatever you want, okay? In this case, I use Dart Microservice, is the server, is the project name. Looking really quickly to the project structure, it's really familiar to the Flutter app itself, right? We do have the pubspec YAML. The pubspec YAML has this similar structure as in the Flutter app. Okay, you have the dependencies, the dev dependencies, and this, by the way, this is immediately when you create a project, it comes out. So I will show some files, the contents of the files of this file structure, and it's the default when you run the create project. You have the core inside of the bin. You have the server.dart. You can also create other files, of course, and other folders. But inside of the server, from the get-go, it's not a counter app or a counter example, but it is an echo project. So if you create the template and run the project, you can immediately get the hello world when you just write the slash, or you can write echo slash a message. and that message will be printed back. It's quite straightforward when you look at this example. We are using getter, the get in the HTTP way, and you can, instead of get, you can use all the other famous keywords, okay? And of course, you have the main method, the entry point of the method. And important part here, and if you are going to use Shelf, please remember to use for your ports the platform environment ports. This will save you a couple of hours debugging when you are trying to deploy the server into the remote cloud. Please remember that this platform environment, okay? Really important. Don't hard code that. So, continuing, and the funny thing is, and this is what caught my eye when I first used the templates, is that the project structure already comes with a Docker file and a Docker ignore. About the Docker ignore, I follow the rules, so I will ignore it, and I will look inside the Docker file, and yeah, maybe you're familiar with Dockerfile, with Docker itself, but you don't need to know much because as is, it works for 99% of the time, okay? You just need something that will copy all the files of your project into a working dir inside the image. It will then compile your project into a server and run it, okay? And again, it will expose this port, and it will be expecting that your code is dynamically using the port that is given. And just a final truth, of course, the README. Why is it important to read? Well, first of all, I follow the rules. It says README, I will read it, and not ignore. And of course, it's helpful it tells you how to build, how to run, so it's just a reminder how to run your project. Okay. That was it. I didn't want to bother you with that. But let's work a bit with the code itself. So the code itself, like we saw, it's quite straightforward, but we can add extra packages, extra modules, right? And one of them, many of them, as you might need to think of, they rely on the build runner. Our famous build runner, so don't forget to use it. And for those who are not aware of, just in case, I will assume that when I follow through these examples, I have the watch running, okay? Just imagine running. How funny it will be to see someone running behind and watching. Oh well, never mind. And of course, the only example I will use it to add it is the shelf router generator. So the code I show you before, in these lines in the start, we have this router and has these responses as methods. It accepts a request, returns a response, of course, and the router generated will simplify even more this. So what does it do? As soon as you add, you can replace not only those lines with a class. In this case, I call it class service, and then you can start using annotation like so. Maybe you are familiar, you're coming from Python. There's the fast API Python that relies on annotations. In this case, annotations that will generate some codes. And this way, it's much easier you just have to annotate the methods, return, request. This is the same as before. The catch is really the catch all is this ignore and dot something. This will, if you try to send anything besides echo, it will return the hello world. And you can use this for 404 pages and such. And since it's generated file, of course you need to add this part server.g. And let's look just a bit more into it. And in this case, since I separated it into a class called service, I just moved that class service into a different file. And now we have a more clean main starting file. So awesome. Can you see immediately an error with this small snippet of code that made me lose 2 hours of my life? Yes, I hard-coded the 8080. So don't do that. Learn, if you can learn something from this talk, is that don't hard code anything. And of course, I just move out to a different class, as simple as that is. And looking at the generated file, it's just adding the router. It creates the router class, and then it will return that class into it. And of course, this, okay, it's just 2 lines of code, and given we are only talking about microservice, so assuming that it will only have some crude methods maybe, or even one. But if you are using with a lot of fields, a lot of endpoints, of course, it will be useful for you to generate your endpoints, because that will generate this. It will generate these files, and it will make this code much more cleaner, right? This main.dart will be much more cleaner, simple. Okay, and that's really about what I have for handlers. It's quite straightforward. Let's deploy it already. So this is not a GCP talk, of course, but I want to follow through, and you'll have the chance to see this talk afterwards, and if you want, you can try it at home. And before that, just a small change. So, of course, we have the most famous counter example, and let's do that. So before, I only had this echo message and ignore. I just added a counter that starts at 0, and then 2 endpoints that you can add into that counter and return that counter. As simple as that. And of course, this doesn't rely on persistent data. As soon as you restart your server, the counter will be back to 0. So look at this as a local stateful class. Just a small example of a server. And voila, microservice. Wasn't that hard, right? Quite awesome. So now you can start macro this, macro that, and that's what I did. I started just creating Docker image, and even at work when I need something, I just write quickly some endpoints, and then I'll tell my backend guys, hey, now do this with your language in Dart. But I hope that more of you try out Dart, maybe, and because it's quite nice, and some people have tried to benchmark Dart in backend versus other languages, and it's okay. It's not that bad. There are worse cases. And to run, if you try to run locally, you can just do Dart run and then server, the main class with the main methods. Okay. So how to deploy to Cloud Run? And Cloud Run, again, it's just a serverless feature by GCP, but you can replace this Google Cloud Run with any machine. You can install it anywhere you want. But I will follow Cloud Run because it's much more easier. Just remember, given that we are now using artifact registry, you need to add those roles to the user you are trying to add the artifact, and also make sure that the user is authenticated to the repository. This artifact registry, as the name says, is just to hold up the image, the Docker image that we are going to use. And yeah, after that, when you have uploaded the container image, you just have to deploy or run into the Cloud Run. So first step, let's upload the container image to the artifact registry. So you have your Docker image, and then you need to tag it. Is as simple as Docker build tag counter server. I'm assuming that you are running this command inside of the project folder, so don't forget the dot. That's not the final dot of the sentence. It's really from the command. And I need to say this, I have a lot of questions. And then you can not only tag it with this, you tag it with the same name underscore. Again, in this layer of Docker, you cannot use otherwise. And instead of latest, you can use even staging, dev, or whatever you want. And given it's latest, I wrote down latest, but if you ignore it, it will assume that is the latest. Then you have some variables, it changes. The location is really the data center location of the GCP. There are plenty of them. This is mandatory now for Artifactory. Then the project ID is the project ID of the GCP project you are using. Repository is the repository inside of the Artifactory registry, and then your image and ID name. So, and this means that if you are building the counter server, in the name you are going to use the counter server name. Just keep up the same. And luckily, this tag image, you only have to do it once, okay? A bit more about that later. Okay, we have the image tagged. We built the image. We have it tagged. Let's upload it to the artifact registry. And for that, you just use the Docker also. Docker push. Cool? Awesome. And with Docker push, you use the same tag, the same line of the tag, and then counter server. As soon as you have the image ready and in the cloud, you can just deploy it directly from the cloud to the machine, the Cloud Run. And for that, you just for easier to understand, you define a service name, and notice that this service name, you can use the dashes, okay? Because before that, the service can only include the alphanumeric and dashes. Again, a good note, it won't let you know about that really in a straightforward way. And for that, you just use the gcloud, hence the SDK I mentioned in the beginning, and you just run gcloud, run deploy, the service name. If you don't introduce it, you don't define it as an environment variable, it will ask you again, no worries, and then the image that you use again. For this example, I'm adding this allow unauthenticated. Of course, in production and properly, you won't use this, but for demo purpose, I added it so anyone can access the service and call your microservice. Your tiny but awesome microservice. Okay, yeah, authenticated. So as soon as, this was kind of boring, right? But as soon as you follow through this first setup, afterwards, as soon as you change your codes, your server, you only have to run these 3 command lines again. Build the Docker image, push it, and deploy it. Could be a Daft Punk music, right? Build, push it, run it. And you can use it in a script, right? Environment variables, create a script, even in Dart script, and just run a command, and there you go. Quite simple. And yeah, conclusion. Cloud Run is really incredible in production. I will mention why, but also in dev. When I want to try out something and I want to share with everyone I know, even my wife, for example, hey, try out this endpoint, so cool. What does it do? It returns hello world, yay! It is what it is. Production, because of course here I'm not talking about security, managing persistent data, and proper microservice architecture. Well, who needs those, right? I just want to show hello worlds, or do I? Well, there's a lot of in the bits, we'll say. So the resources I use this is of course the Docker. The Docker itself has an image for Dart. It's what it is being using in when you open the Docker file. You see it in the start. There's the official Dart you can use. The Google Cloud, it has a lot of examples and more code documentation to help you to implement Dart in the server. The Cloud Run official page is there. And now it means we work with Google, so we know how flexible and how they keep changing, which is good, of course. But how can I put this way? This package, when it came out, I was really happy. It made our work way more faster. But they decided 2 years ago, they stopped. But of course, 18 days ago, they had to do an update. So everything I told you about of course, you can use shelf and create add the modules and simplify with the generator. But with this library, you can simply use annotation cloud function. Create the function itself, and you have a microservice. How awesome is that? As simple as this. This is just a screenshot from the library. So try it out. Go to package functions framework. It's also a Dart team maintained package. So yay, 2 years ago they should have not tell me about. Maybe next talk I'll talk about this. But let's go to the demo, shall we? Pray on me. So who here has a phone or a smartphone? Do you have a smartphone? You have a smartphone? Awesome. Do you have Wi-Fi there? Do you? I hope not. I was hoping no one had a smartphone. So go to voicefilipebarroso.com. Let's go, let's go. So in Voice, how smart was I to just have a website so with my name .com? Oh, awesome. No, it's of course I did my job of I don't post that much blog posts, so it's really old. But I can see people already have been using it. So what it does is just a feedback. So you pick an emoji, of course, limited and chosen by me, of course, and you can see everyone else's reaction to it. The Cloud Run at first takes a bit of time to boot up, so take that in your idea. And of course, I only put 60 seconds timeout, so you are not only looking down, you have to look at me too, you know. So, and it's quite fun, isn't it? So another thing that is fun is that if you use Dart, we all realize that when we are creating a Flutter app, it's quite easy to integrate what? Firebase. Why is it, right? So, and there's a similar thing with Dart for backends. Because if you are working with Dart for backends and you want to access other features by GCP, there's a library called Google APIs. And that Google APIs has things like the Slides API, which is great. Why is it great? Because the Slides API can do things like update your slides live. How cool is that? Huh? So, and there's a lot of integration. You can even boot up other Cloud Runs. You can access Google Cloud Sheets and open it, load it inside of the slides. You can grab your slides and open it in elsewhere. So, of course, I hacked this a lot, so I need to call it. And of course, why is 111? Oh, it's a demo, okay? Just bear with me, it's a demo. But it's quite cool. And for example, I can even, does anyone want to shout out an emoji? Emoji? No one wants to say a random emoji? Who? Like? There's already a like. So you can open your app and try to, I just added a new emoji. So if you refresh your page, if you didn't updated it, I will show it here. So by refreshing, I added already a coffee emoji. So, you weren't that fast, so I just remove it. How awesome is that? Huh? Because there's already, this could be a product itself. It was a hacky, it's using emoji as is strings, that's why it looks different in the desktop and not in the phone. It's the browser, how it processes. There are some bugs in terms of the listing the server, but it's a hacky solution, it works. If I dedicate more time into this, it can be a full-blown project. And I hope this is a good way to tell you that Dart for backend is doable. It's easy. You can integrate it with many other features, mainly GCP, like this with the slides and all. But it's quite interesting in that regard. And yeah, a short talk. I hope you enjoy it. And I have a lot of time for questions, everyone. Thank you.